Well, hey, gang, thanks for joining me. I'm pleased to present you with my interview with Mike Wald, aka Waldo. Mike was kind enough to join me back in October for about an hour and a half of conversing. And this is part one of probably what will be two videos. The conversation goes over the onboard effects loop, some different stuff about effects, this, that, and the other thing. And it was just a total joy to get to talk to Mike finally in person. A big thank you to Mike. Check out his website, Waldtronics. He's got every schematic you'd want to see, all the Garcia guitars. He really has done groundbreaking research in Garcia tone stuff. Without Mike's hard work, I don't know where it would be in the Garcia tone chase. We all owe a lot to Mike, and it was a real pleasure to get a chance to talk to him. If you're not subscribed already, please take a second and hit the subscribe button. And without any further ado, here is my interview with Waldo. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care. Okay, folks, I'm here with Waldo. I go way back, probably to about 2008 on the message boards with him, and he's the guy with the answers. Waldo, I would call basically the king of the mountain in terms of Jerry tone researching. He's a fellow tone nerd like me, and I bet a lot of you dudes, because let's face it, you're mostly dudes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Joni's out there.
Yeah, fair enough. Most everybody knows Waldo, but it's great to have you, Mike. Thanks for making the time to talk to me.
Yeah, no problem, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for your offer.
Yeah. So basically, where I kind of wanted to start was the onboard effects loop.
Okay.
It's kind of like a necessary thing for a Garcia guitar, but it's
not necessary because he didn't start using it until end of 76. So
yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Good chunk of it, but
a lot of people have that on their mind when they're thinking, mod a guitar for the Garcia thing. So why do you think he went to the trouble to do it?
I think it was a part of his evolution. I mean, we sit in a different time frame than he did, and our whole approach is way different than what his was. There was no rack mount effects, and these were just the newest effects that were coming out. And he was in the front. You didn't hear a lot of it on stage, but they were trying shit out in the background.
Yeah.
For years.
Right.
Some of it did make the stage, and the wall of sound, you got that Morley fuzz wah.
Right.
It gets that bees in the box that comes in there. But the OBL really, why he gravitated towards that is because Jerry was a real clean player. Mm-hmm. and he talks about that in his interviews, and he liked the note. And what Healy had told me is that Jerry had approached him when he started to use these effects, wanting to use these effects more. This is in 76, obviously, probably beginning or middle, I'm not sure, but somewhere in 76, he starts messing more with effects pedals as they're being coming out and designed,
Sure. Yeah.
And he said that they were messing with his pickups.
Yeah.
So he didn't like the response he had going through two or three of them singular in a straight line like we do.
Right.
His ears were more tuned to the note, and he was looking for it through that saturated effect sound. When you're not giving the pickups the full volume of the pickup, or the pedal the full volume of the pickup, the oomph isn't really the character, the dynamic of the pedal. As most people that once you get an OBL and start playing with your pedals in that form, be like, oh smokes,
Yeah,
you can really crank a dirt pedal and not have to worry about screaming the whole place out. You just turn it on when you need it, turn it off when it's gone.
Yeah. It has a couple of like what I would say of side benefits of like you don't have to tap dance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you want to play the octave and the Mutron, you can sort of load them up and then turn the switch off and have a clean signal, and then just throw the switch on the guitar and boom, then you have both effects. So it was almost like a way of making a patch ahead of that technology being available. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly. Exactly. That's where his thinking was when he approached it that way. He was, I believe, he came up with the problem that he ran into,
Mhm.
and then like Owsley with the wall, he came up with the idea, but Healy's the one that took it, designed it, and implemented it. He's the one that said, okay. He said first, we need to put a buffer on it. And that's when we found out the first buffers came with the first OBL. Kid and Parrish all said no battery in Wolf until the wire change, and when it comes back in '77, it has the OBL.
Okay. Today's show is brought to you by Black-Throated Mercantile from the mighty high heights of Salida, Colorado. All the way from Dead Lot to your head. Check them out on Instagram or their big cartel. Black-Throated Mercantile hats. Go get you one. I kind of see the OBL and the Mutron showing up side by side. You know what I mean? And like the Mutron is super touch sensitive and super like it's really sensitive to the dynamic of the picking, obviously.
Right.
And I feel like the onboard effects loop when you're feeding the Mutron the note straight from the pickup, basically, it delivers a much more predictable note or return. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, consistent one.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right. That he tried the Mutron in '76 before the OBL. Mm-hmm. There's some instances in there, and I can't come off the top of my head of what dates there would be, but there are a couple instances that I've through listening that he's playing with that Mutron, and when you hear those that's what you're looking for is the non-OBL, that full signal hit. You're looking for how you would hear it the other way. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And it's in there. He's playing with it, but he doesn't stick with it long enough for anybody to say, "Hey, he's playing the Mutron." You know, you really got to be listening for him. And going off what you said about him, if it being more like a patch, that was Jerry's just straightforward.
Yeah.
Before he says even when he had the Wolf, I think in that guitar player, it says he just got two tones, clean and fuzz, and that's how he thought about him.
Right.
When he kicked on the Mutron, it was for a purpose for that song. Not a lot of times you go through a jam, other than maybe like the end of Terrapin where he's flopping between the octave divider and then the next time it'll be the octave divider and the overdrive on, or he's playing around in that ending set thematic set. He doesn't really. He just flicks on what he's going to use. If he forgets, he's so quick with it, he flips right back over to it. Or sometimes 85 Dupree's, where is it, Greek or Red Rocks? He's playing that, and he goes to the solo and Dupree's, and it should be usually I think at that point it was just Mutron, but he kicks on his OBL, kicks on his Mutron and his overdrive and his distortion plus are on. So he's just blaring, but he's like, wait a minute, this sounds cool for a second, and then he turns them on, you know what I mean? Then he starts to fix it, but. Used it really much like a patch once, and I think having that consistent pickup volume to it, he could set it right where he wanted, and he didn't have to deal with it. And these guys also dealt with the amps in the early days. Wickersham and them talk about how the line voltages changes from venue to venue, and or Parrish says that Jerry knows when his voltage has changed.
Oh, no kidding.
He knew when the venue's voltage had changed. There was some interview where Parrish had said that, and he couldn't believe. Might be in the Gearbook or something like that.
Yeah,
But
that does sound familiar. I remember before we lost Rick Turner, he would jump on the interwebs, and I remember him saying that the Boston Music Hall had DC power wired into it, and they found it the hard way. You know what I mean? You would just plug into, like, it was just an outlet, like for production stuff. Like maybe the light rig ran on DC power or something.
Right.
But yeah, that's how like hodgepodge it was back in the day. It was real like hooker crook production stuff. It was kind of like rock and roll mixed with like summer stock theater. You know what I mean? Where it's just like, we're gonna get the show together somehow, man.
It's gonna go on.
Yeah, right. And if it went on at midnight, like that's just how it went down.
Right. I agree. Yeah. That's the way that was the era of it.
Sure,
these guys were the leaders of the pack. They were showing everybody how it's done. But the reason why I touched on that voltage thing with the amps is because Jerry was really, really in tune with the power of his note. He really knew his guitar, the beam of death on them JBLs, his 2300, and then to come in now with the OBL, he tailored it to him. And, granted, it's not for everybody, but it is worth a shot for some to try it out. It's even in a non-dead context.
Right.
You hear a lot of players that say, well, I just need my guitar and my amp. Well, that's basically what Jerry played.
Yeah, right.
The guitar and his amp. Every now and then he flicked the OBL on and he put on an effect, but for the most part, it was just him and that amp.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And like that was kind of the whole driving idea of setting it up that way, so that it was like the slickest way to get straight from the pickup to the amplifier. Yeah, you're 100% right. Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. And also super similar. Like they both like the Strat scale length. You know what I mean? Like you sort of see the dawn of custom guitars happening concurrently, like around like the mid late 70s, and that's right when 77-ish, that's when Jerry starts using all this stuff. It's pretty interesting. Like that must have been a really kind of interesting time in guitar technology.
It had to be. I mean, you're also talking not too early, maybe a few 73, 74, Larry DiMarzio starts winding pickups,
right?
And these pickup makers start showing up, and it was a great time. I wish I'd have been a part of.
Yeah, right. I mean, all the stuff that, yeah, totally. I kick myself for not having the scratch to buy some of the stuff that I saw when I was younger. There was I was living in Vermont, and there was a Travis Beam that was at the guitar store, and it was not crazy expensive. You know what I mean? And now they're like unobtainium. So
yeah. I remember when the Mutrons were like $200-$300. They were cheaper than the Mutron octa dividers, which were like $800 at the time. I think 500.
Yeah, right.
But I remember Brad saying he'd get, I forget what it was, but some ridiculous price he used to be able to get it for. I wish I'd have bought 20 of them.
Yeah, right. My interest in this stuff stemmed from like pretty much getting a DSL cable line. That's when I discovered Dozen's website. That's when I discovered you guys on the forum.
Right.
That's when it was, and then when I was like, wow, like this is achievable. It's not like the easiest thing in the world, but there's like a parts list, and you have to have a little bit of an understanding, know how the stuff goes together. But it's like you can do it,
Yeah, yep, and you don't have to have the exact same equipment as him, as you're trying out. I see with the different amps and stuff.
Yeah.
It all does start in the fingers and in the practice and how much you're willing to put in there, because all of the other stuff really don't mean nothing other than for your own satisfaction in your house, which I get too.
Yeah.
Right. You don't need it all.
Yeah. I like it for the sound and like you said, like the fingers, like getting that stuff, getting the stuff under the fingers is the main thing. You know what I mean? Just how you pluck the notes.
Right. Right.
And like going back to the onboard effects loop, that definitely informs the playing. you know, like you can sort of, I feel like you can kind of be a little more consistent with your touch. Like it's a real tactile thing, just like anything else with guitar effects. Like when you're in the room playing it is when you kind of get that like feedback loop going. You know what I mean?
And then finally getting one on your guitar and then not having to wrestle with them every other time you turn them on.
Right.
You know, to get I had that magical note last night. Where's it at? You know, it's there every time you turn on the guitar. You know, every time you turn them on.
100%. I mean, if you listen to the Cornell, the famous 5877, when he clicks the Mutron on during the transition into Fire on the Mountain, it's still set up the reverse way for Dancing in the Streets.
Yeah, see?
With the first note, it's like it's still where it was. But it's really funny because like in that moment, you're like, oh, yeah, that's like guitar player problems. I can relate to that.
Right.
I kind of like the I like thinking it. So it's interesting. Like he pairs the pedals. I think a pedal maker is almost like sommeliers at restaurants with the wine and food pairing. You know what I mean? Like that, like the way that the MXR pedals sound together, they sound really good because they're kind of tuned to work off one another. They're from the same pedal line. You know what I mean? You get that Far From Me sound, right? With the phase and the distortion. Likewise, on the Mutron side of the effects, the Envelope and the Mutron 3 sound great together. You know, like they're kind of like they have this like chocolate and peanut butter thing going.
Right.
Which is interesting that they come in pairs, you know.
To add to that, almost in pairs, but you also have them pickups that are driving them.
Yeah,
it's a part of that equation as well.
Yeah, for sure. And even like sprinkling the tone knob too. That's a huge part of the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know,
one that you rarely hear some of the big Jerry players out there do when they'll get into them solos. That you rarely see them throw that tone control over, and play and ride the distortion plus with it in there, you know.
Man, he was I thought a lot about this actually, because like if you go way back to the Primal Dead stuff, he had cranked amps and a volume knob on the guitar and a humbucking guitar. You know what I mean? He was so good at getting a really good bridge pickup sound. You know, where it wasn't like the Clapton Woman tone. It was different. Those 69 shows when he's on the bridge with the tone rolled off is really something. And then, so if you go fast forward to like what you're talking about, like the famous Keene College release that came out kind of right in the mid-aught. And he's got the wah cocked and the distortion on and the tone rolled back, and it's awesome. It's almost like this like trumpet kind of sound, you know?
Right. Now when he gets to those things, that resonant peak that he has that's going on can be dangerous on them speakers. Because because them and if you mess with it, you'll notice that you can pop them a lot harder too with them. That's a really, really strong signal. You know, when he gets to it, you've narrowed down that
it focuses those frequencies down to like a point, I'm sure.
Right. And so you got to watch the transients on those when those start popping out. When he throws the effects on, because it'll start producing its own high end and stuff like that.
Yeah, right. That's a good point. I'm pretty gingery on the overdrive. I really haven't. I haven't really taken myself to school and playing overdrive Garcia stuff yet. It's like I feel like I'm kind of getting the Mutron under my fingers a little better. And that's been like my project for the last year. And like I'm going to kind of get on to the distortion stuff next, because I really think it's like it's its own discipline, you know, like
you know what I mean? Yeah. It's and it goes off of Jerry was peculiar on what songs he would use them on.
Sure.
You know, he didn't use a distortion plus on every song or every solo he could, or even random solos. Most of the time, it wasn't a distortion plus unless you end up hearing him play it for a year or two. You know what I mean? Then it becomes a part of the song. Okay, now this solo is going to have the distortion plus on it now.
Yeah,
You
right,
know what I
right,
mean?
right.
And he was it didn't really change around up until MIDI arrives.
Mm.
Then now you get MIDI on top of it, and some of that other playing with the effects drops to either just MIDI or clean guitar in MIDI or whatever effect he puts on in MIDI. And I don't know if you ever got down that road yet.
No, I haven't. Yeah, no, but like I love the MIDI Dead. That's
Yeah.
kind of when I started seeing shows, and my uncles who taught me how to play guitar, and he was like their age. You know what I mean? He was
Okay.
born in the early 40s, and he played Irish music in bars in New England. So like he
Right.
didn't play big gigs, but like he was the same way with new shit. You know what I mean? Like like he had this Boston accent, be like, look when I get this lexicon, the lexicon makes the note repeat, and it's like I mean he was the first person to show me an electric tuner. You know what I mean?
Right on, yeah.
And like that marriage of functionality, gear, and like, wow, this is a pretty cool piece of kit. You know, like it all kind of comes together. You know, so I can really relate to like the Dead. It's sort of cut from the same cloth. You know what I mean? Like it was all new, exciting shit to them, you know?